It is but a given that any society works on the idea that the mainstream decides what is right or what is wrong. The mainstream, rather the majority, both of them decide that this is what is required, this isn't, and more often than not, people in the periphery are not even asked their opinion. In our film, generally, those people in the periphery are not even given their moment under the sun, the limelight, the arc light, whatever it is. But there are exceptions, like the film Vijay Antony's Pichakaran, directed by Sakhi, which shone light on the idea of the world of begging. A lot of them are not really there because they want to be, and then there are other people who are just existing in that sphere, but all of them have a reason to be there. And when you look at them, you have a doubt whether should you help them, should you care for them, should you ask them to go and stand on their own 2 feet and fend for themselves. So basically, who decides what is right for them or by them? Should it be done by those who have it or those who don't have it? And in between these two questions lies the biggest question of them all: who decides all of these things? Vanakkam and welcome to Cinema Express. In this week's video review episode, we are going to look at Sekhar Kammula's Kubera, starring Dhanush, Nagarjuna, Rashmika Mandana, Jim Sarb, and a bunch of other actors. The premise is largely simple. A huge scam of almost 1 lakh crores is happening. Many political bigwigs, corporate criminals, there's a nexus between the both of them. They want to ensure that certain project goes to one particular company's name, and how resources are being privatized, and all those social commentary also happens in that space. But for converting the black money into white to amounting almost to 50,000 crores, to ensure this nexus happens well, they employ the services of tainted cop Deepak, played by Nagarjuna, who is this person who is now understood that law doesn't always favor the right. He has now decided that his family's safety, his move outside the jail is very, very important, and decides to help the corporate criminal to ensure that the black money is converted to white. And how do they do that? They employ beggars who really wouldn't be missed, who wouldn't have an address, who wouldn't really know the value of money. And all of this happens, and that's how, in this world of multiple zeros that go on and on and on, you find an unlikely hero in the form of Deva, played by Dhanush. The film starts quite promisingly, even if they take a lot of time to establish the characters and what they want to do out of their own lives and what they're planning to do with the lives of many, many Indians who are not really aware of what is going to happen to their own lives. In the film, Deva doesn't really know what's going to happen to his life. And in some way, despite him being a beggar and not being in control of his own fate and what's going to happen to him, it also reflects the fact that even we don't. Let's say what's happening behind those big scams, if they don't get caught, those things will just continue, and we, the unsuspecting population, wouldn't really have an idea of what's going to happen to us. So in many ways, the film actually talks about this idea also, where it says that all of us are begging for something in our lives. It could be for marriage, it could be for a job, it could be for extra salary, it could be for food, it could be for a lot of other things. We're all begging in our own way. But then we do look at beggars in a very, very derogatory way. We find them to be the reflections of humankind's insecurities, or probably you look at them, you think a couple of decisions that go wrong in your life, you could end up on the streets like them. So it's like you don't want to be them, but you understand where they come from, but then you don't really want to encourage them. Looking at the idea of beggars always has been a very, very touchy topic to us, because we know they don't come out of nowhere. The people in the periphery are not there without the knowledge of people in the mainstream. They know they exist on the fringes, they know they are there, they know what they want, they know what they need, and yet they don't get any of these things. So it's a very interesting play of how money works in very, very mysterious ways. So when Dhanush and 3 other beggars are brought into the fray to convert this black money into white, and how they are basically pawns in this whole scam, and we know what's going to happen to them. And one sudden change of plans makes the entire system crumble. But then this is not a film that is going to have an overarching view of how capitalism works, or how these scams work, or how money controls everything else. But it's a very interesting idea of what will a beggar do if he has 10,000 crores. From this point, the film doesn't really want you to concentrate on the logic of things, because, see, we understand that anything in any country can be bought. We know of people who have made fake documents to get into a lot of other institutions and even bank accounts, and we know about the whole Swiss bank, everything. So let's leave the idea of logic aside. So let's just assume everything happens as they're saying it happens. What is interesting is how Dhanush, who plays Deva, is wonderful in this film. Every time he understands the world around him, you see him getting bolder and bolder, but then there is something very innocent, there's something very naive about this character. Have you ever wondered that how the people on the fringes want to live so badly, as in they know they're suffering, they know their existence is not really cushioned, or they know that anytime anything could happen to them, and they still continue to thrive? And that's a question that's wonderfully explored in Kubera. It's like Dhanush character always says, I am living because I have to. And you don't really want to think of the alternative, like why shouldn't they live? So that question is actually pointed to us. So it's very easy to think that why should someone suffer so much? Why should someone go through all of this? Why should someone just be on the streets begging? Why should someone's life be so dispensable? But then for that particular person, their only way moving forward is to live through every single day. And that's a wonderful exploration of the idea of what life means for a lot of us. And then there is also the idea of how flippant the system cares about them. There's a scene where a particular beggar is killed in a hit and run. No one wants to take care of him, and then an elderly beggar actually points out to Dhanush and his friends and says that ensure that he is burnt on sticks so that he doesn't get reborn as a beggar. That's a very poignant message. It's not like, and in the very next scene, when someone comes in and asks the bunch of beggars, I'll give you a job, just come with us, no one really moved. So it's very, this dichotomy is very interesting to see that what really makes them continue to beg, or what makes them stay put in a place that is comfort, that is familiar to them. So it's an answer to a lot of questions. Once the numbers are thrown in, and then these beggars are changed and transformed into something very, very sophisticated to ensure that this whole Hawala scheme can happen, the film takes a very interesting turn, because the actors who are playing that are slowly coming into terms with money, to see them look all prim and proper, and to see them understand what it means to be rich. But it's also, in some way, Shekhar Kammula's letting us know that they do not really know the value of money. And that is somewhere I found a very dissonant idea to it, because see, they are still living in the world which is around them. They know what is happening, they know the big difference between rich and poor. I'm not sure if they had to be shown to be so naive that they won't even do anything wrong, or they won't understand the idea of the money itself. Because to see them go around the flights, go around to different countries and meet people, see so much cash around them, and to them not to even have an idea of what's happening, that's really, as I said, we have to keep logic aside. But in the world, in this particular world, there is a few questions that has to be asked about such nuanced ideas in the film. And Nagarjuna is excellent as a person who is conflicted between the idea of morality and need. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have Dhanush, who has no idea of need but has a very, very strong sense of morality. It almost questions the idea that who do you think is more moral, who do you think has more good values? Would you even think that a beggar has that? So it makes you question the idea of a person, makes you question the idea of what really makes a person's morals. Is it the position they are in? Is it the money they have? Is it the the conditions around them? Is it the world that is making them into a particular way? So these exploration of human psyche, the exploration of equations are actually always wonderful in Shekhar Kammula's films. But this time it is not explored enough, especially in the relationship between Dhanush Deva and Rashmika Mandana. You have someone who is on the run for no reason, and someone who is forced to be on the run because of this reason. And this equation plays out rather beautifully, but it's not done enough. So we know why Dhanush Deva does a lot of things. Actually, we know why he does everything. The way he deals with Rashmika's character, Nagarjuna's character, or even Jim Saab's character, and how we see the idea of karma play out beautifully. We see the idea of empathy play out beautifully. One good deed done by Dhanush at one point of the film comes to help him in later point of the film. You see how the showcase of Dhanush's innocence, Dhanush's poverty, Dhanush's idea of what is right, what is wrong being explored slowly throughout the film. And Dhanush is brilliant in the role. There's not even a single scene where you can actually see Dhanush. He's been in the industry for so long. He's played these larger-than-life characters. He's played these massy characters. And yet, in Kubera, Dhanush plays Deva very, very wonderfully. As in, there is not a single hero elevation moment that we have now come to expect out of star-driven films. Of course, everyone's going to talk about that intro scene where he's just seen on the streets of Tirupati begging. But more than that scene, for me, it is what really stood out in Dhanush's performance in this film is one scene where he understands that money will make the world dance around him. That song is such a beautifully placed number that comes at, let's say, it does come at a place where I genuinely thought it was too little too late, but the song was so compelling. It was a wonderful explanation again of what really separates the people in the world. It's always the fight between the haves and the have nots, and everything else is an added layer to it. And Kubera does explore this slowly and gradually over a 3 hour runtime. We see big numbers being thrown in, we see big actors coming in and doing roles, but then the film is essentially about one person understanding the value of money and people understanding the value of a human life. Coming back to Rashmika's character, this should have been a much better exploration of her role, and she mostly feels like an added appendage to what's happening to Deva's character. We don't really know enough about why she does all of these things, and the reasoning that the film wants to give us isn't very convincing enough. But we understand what's happening. We understand that the system is always rigged. The system is going to favor the one with money. The system is going to favor the one with power. That's why when the final act happens and we see a lot of things unfolding, those don't really click enough. This film aims to be realistic despite taking a fantastical premise. This film tries to be grounded despite having one of the biggest stars of Indian cinema right at the center of it. This film has wonderful music by Devishri Prasad, whose background score elevates the film to a wonderful extent. And yet, all of this happens, all of this is wonderful, all of this is good, all of this is compelling, all of this is interesting, exciting, everything. But somehow, when it's almost like the ending doesn't really fit into the whole narrative, because we're suddenly asked to forget that it's a story of a nobody. So when the nobody is trying to push back, it becomes an underdog story and this becomes a very, very masala-ish film. But the resolution that Deva wants is so whimsical. It actually makes you feel bad for him, that he still doesn't understand what it means to have money. And again, should we feel sad about it or should we feel happy that there's still someone who isn't swayed by the idea of money? But then what is the point of him having the idea of money or him going through everything, Nagarjuna's character going through everything, Rashmika's character going through everything, the other beggars, the other people involved in the money-minded thing? It's almost like Sekhar Kammula is telling us that, see, this is the story of one particular person who is put in a outlandish situation altogether, and once the situation solves, everything comes back to normal. But the question is, what is normal? Who decides that normal? And again, in a fight between the haves and have-nots, can the have-nots ever have the upper hand at any point of time? Hope you like this video review episode, and if you did, please like, share and subscribe to Cinema Express, and do watch the film and let us know what you thought of Kubera and what you thought of this review. Until we meet in the next video review episode on Cinema Express, this is your friendly neighborhood critic Avinash Ramachandran signing off. Tata.